What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined once again by my main man, Jack Markowski. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcast. And as always, find all our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers are preparing for the Baltimore Ravens this weekend. And while there are some exciting injury news, it gives you optimism for the now. It's also important to talk about the future. And for Aaron Rodgers, today was about whether or not he will be back in the future. He addressed the big giant question heading into this weekend, and that is this his final game in the NFL and in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform? We're diving into that. Plus, the Dallas Cowboys made a bit of a surprising move yesterday. Well, maybe the Steelers can take advantage of it. It's not a good one here in the Berg. It's not going to be a good one here in the Berg until April. So maybe I should stop saying it. But either way, it's snowy. I'm sure it's snowier there in New Jersey. How you feel, my friend?
I feel good. It's actually not too snowy here. It's not brutal outside. It has been for the past few weeks, but yeah, I'm doing good. I'm happy to be back. I know my Kyler take yesterday kind of was a little out there, so I'm going to see what else I can do today to get everybody riled up.
I loved the Kyler take. We made a full clip on the Kyler take. Made a social post about the Kyler. I was all in. I actually had a conversation with my wife last night at the dinner table. She said, "How was your day?" My response instantly was, "I think me and Jack have to start doing a hot takes podcast." And she's like, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, I think he's real good at it. I think we're going to have to do it." I'm excited to see what you got. Let's talk some Pittsburgh Steelers football here. The Steelers quarterback right now is Aaron Rodgers. In the future, we don't know who it's going to be. And there are a ton of questions about whether or not Aaron Rodgers is going to come back, what this offseason looks like for the Steelers, if they should want him back. And I think a lot of it is decided on Sunday against the Baltimore Ravens when they decide, is their season over or are they headed to the playoffs with a chance at redemption? Before we dive into what Aaron said, before we dive into the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback position, I want to ask you, Sunday, is that enough for the Steelers to consider a comeback for Aaron Rodgers? Is winning against the Ravens and earning a playoff spot for you good enough to say the Steelers would welcome Aaron back, or do they need to do more? Do they need to snap the playoff drought that they are in and actually win a game in the wild card round to consider anything in terms of the quarterback and Aaron Rodgers?
So I do think the Steelers will be content with keeping Aaron if they do win against the Ravens, then lose in the playoffs. If we're speaking from a personal perspective, I would try to do a little more. It's not like he's been bad this year. You know, he's 42. He's been a top 20 quarterback in the league. Probably he's played solid, if not inconsistent. I think there's still a chance they bring him back regardless of what happens. I wouldn't agree with that either. But I do think if he goes out, turns around after a bad performance against the Browns, leads them to a win in the biggest regular season game for them in a while, I do think the organization would be much more open to keeping him than, you know, if they were to lose in embarrassing fashion or whatever else were to happen.
Yeah, I feel somewhat the same. If you go into the playoffs, you look good. If you get smoked, I think that's the context that we all need to add into all of these conversations. If the Steelers lose to the Ravens by 30, no one's coming back. If the Steelers lose by 30 in the first round of the playoffs, nobody's coming back. But if you show life in the next week or two, if you show that maybe you need to add some wide receivers, maybe you need to boost the defense, maybe you need better coaches, but it's not the quarterback position in the next 2 weeks, then I think that the Steelers are in a spot where they would welcome Aaron back and they'd actually push for Aaron Rodgers to return in 2026, even at 43 years old, which is absolutely ridiculous. But it's what the Steelers are looking like. Aaron spoke today. He was asked a number of questions about it, about whether or not he would return, whether or not he's thinking about it. He said no. Then he went on this whole long rant about how he's watched guys break their necks and their career ends, so that he's taken every moment for granted. I want you to hear it. I want you guys to hear it. And then we'll dive into whether or not we think Aaron Rodgers is coming back, because I think that this is already known. Do I think that it's going to drag out until June? Certainly. Do I think he knows today whether or not he's playing football next season? Yeah, I actually do think he knows whether or not he's playing football next season. This is a little bit of what he had to say earlier today.
Relishing those mundane moments more this year, knowing you only signed a one-year contract here?
No, I mean, I've always relished those. That's a teaching from Tom Clements going way back to my early years, and Mike McCarthy, trying to find a little advantages Monday to Saturday, cues and patterns that you might recognize on game day. So training yourself to be able to look for those things Monday to Saturday. So Sunday, the game feels more like practice.
Aaron, how's the reality of being on this team sort of compared to maybe what you thought it was going to be like before you joined?
It's fantastic. I mean, everything about this experience has been great. It's been a special experience from the first conversation with Mike to the first day I got here in June to some of the stuff I did when I first got in town, going over to Cam's house, doing Cam's golf tournament, being a part of the community and learning about the people of Pittsburgh and our fan base. And it's been a really special year, and we're playing meaningful football in December and January now, which is what I wanted after the last couple of years. No, I mean, my entire career, I've had the approach really since 2011. We lost a dear friend and a teammate on the field, broke his neck. Now, he walked and is ambulatory now and living a great life. And then I saw it in 2013 as well. So the mortality of those moments and the seriousness of seeing a teammate get carted off the field in a neck brace, I think makes you realize how special this opportunity is, but how fleeting it can be. And you just got to stay in the moment, and each one could be your last. That's kind of the mindset. Obviously, I've played a lot of football. I've been fortunate for the most part health-wise over the years. But I know how delicate this thing can be, and seeing guys like that get carted off and never play again. So I've had that approach my entire career, and no different this season.
No different this season. I'll open the floor to you. I've had thoughts on this the whole day, honestly, most of the afternoon. You take that, you look at 2 minutes, 120 seconds of Mason McCormick standing 6 inches behind me, just yelling random stuff. Shout out to Mason. And Aaron talking about watching guys get carted off the field for the last time, fleeting moments, his expectations in Pittsburgh, which that's my favorite response to this whole thing is, oh, they've exceeded expectations. A team with DK Metcalf and a great offensive line and Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith and myself and Jalen Ramsey and TJ Watt and Cam Hayward and Alex Highsmith and Joey Porter Jr. 9-8 is everything I dreamed of and more. That's what I was looking for. Wild answer. You look at this. What's your thoughts? Do you think he's coming back?
I do think he's coming back. He did seem super reflective, but just based on his tone and stuff, I do think he wants to give it one more go. And I do think a lot rides on how this week's game goes. I don't think he wants to finish his career or even his Steelers career with a loss at home to the Ravens that eliminates them from the playoffs after the season looked pretty promising at one point. And it's interesting because it really did feel before the season started when he was on the Pat McAfee show after signing with the Steelers, he seemed pretty finite in his decision that he was going to retire after this year. And it's pretty clear that he has enjoyed his time in Pittsburgh. I do think he would be more than open to a return. I think the organization could feel the same way, again, depending on how Sunday's game goes. So I do think it's more likely that he returns and plays for the Steelers next year than not, whether that's retiring or playing for another team.
I hate it so much. I hate it. I think Aaron Rodgers, first off, let's also backtrack to this one. Did you catch his press conference moment where he said he's going to talk to his wife?
I did not.
He said, well, I'll talk to my wife and then we'll see. And it was the first time I said, oh, he stood there like this. And I said, oh, Aaron, that was a natural, my wife. That was the first time ever that felt real. Like this is a real thing. And this is a real woman. Aaron Rodgers in my head already knows what he's going to do. Mm-hmm. I do think he's going to come back in 2026. I don't think it means that that's the end of the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback search, but I do think that it means that they are going to take their time for this. This is how I view the situation on both sides. Aaron wants to play another season. He wants to be competitive. The Steelers are always a competitive team, and they're never going to say, hey, we need a rebuild, at least not with a 43-year-old quarterback, which is what he'd be. So you're going to get that aspect of it. You're going to get that Aaron Rodgers is on a team where maybe he could, compete for something or at least play meaningful football, which is what he's looking for. If the Vikings call him, maybe that's a different story. But the Steelers will say, this is our excuse to wait another draft and wait until 2027 to draft a quarterback, which is what they want to do. They want to wait until 2027. They are in quarterback purgatory hell right now. This is the worst situation possible to say, we are back-to-back awful quarterback drafts, and we need a quarterback desperately. They will use Aaron as the excuse to say, this is our bridge for one more season. But I'm also not totally convinced that they'll be the only one. Let's look at other teams. The Indianapolis Colts might need a quarterback. The Minnesota Vikings might need a quarterback. You are going to have teams around the league that are pretty good NFL teams right now who need a quarterback. Do you think that there is a possibility the Steelers lose Aaron to another team in the offseason?
Yeah, like you said, I think the biggest contender to steal Aaron away from the Steelers would be the Vikings. There were a lot of rumblings about them being his preferred landing spot this past offseason, but they were kind of committed to J.J. McCarthy. I don't think that's going to be the case again. He's been iffy at best when healthy. Max Brosmer is not the option. That's pretty clear too.
No.
We know he's friendly with Kevin O'Connell. The Vikings have a good roster. I know they're 8-8 this year. Things haven't gone as well as they did last year with Sam Darnold. He could go back to the NFC North and finish his career there. I think that's appealing for a few reasons. And I think the Colts are a good landing spot too, potentially. I don't think he would ever pick the Colts over the Steelers.
Okay.
I think they have a good roster. Maybe I think it's on par or better than the Steelers, but I do think just his experience in Pittsburgh, his relationship with Mike Tomlin, the way he's talked about his time as a Steeler, I do think that would sway him towards returning to Pittsburgh over going to Indianapolis. Maybe the opportunity to play for Shane Steichen, who's one of the better offensive minds in the league, could change his opinion on that. But I do think the Vikings are the main team to watch because he's not going to sign with like the Browns if they don't get Dante Moore or Fernando Mendoza. He's not going to the Raiders. They're going to have the number one pick. So
no.
I do think it's the Vikings and Colts are the two main ones to watch, but I think the Vikings more so than Indy.
What about the Rams? What if the Rams win the Super Bowl, Stafford retires, and McVay calls Aaron Rodgers to say, look, we can't get a quarterback with the 32nd pick in the draft. We need somebody.
That would be interesting. I think they would be more of a threat than the Vikings for sure, just because he gets to go home to California. The Rams obviously are a wagon. They have been always under Sean McVay. So yeah, I would be worried about that if I were the Steelers. You want Aaron to return and the Rams open up. He could play with Devontae Adams again too.
Yep.
Or that's a huge factor. So yeah, I could see that if Stafford does retire on top, if they win the Super Bowl.
I could see it as well. I do think the Steelers are going to have some threats. I think that this thing is going to roll itself out. This is going to be exactly what we went through this offseason. The only difference is nobody's going to care. People are going to be over it before it even starts. People are over it now. Let's be really honest. You talk about Aaron Rodgers and people are already removed from the conversation. And I judge everything off of, interactions and that kind of stuff. And you could tell when you are talking about certain things with the Pittsburgh Steelers, people just disengage. And I hear it. Like, I get it. I feel it 100% because I'm disengaged. I don't want to deal with another 6 months of Aaron Rodgers contemplating whatever he's contemplating. But I do think that it's going to turn out to be a JJ doesn't look that good. Let's go through all the nonsense. And, Minnesota's not going to come out immediately and say Aaron's our guy. And LA's not going to say this. And Indy's not going to say this. Pittsburgh's going to be the only team that says Aaron's our top option. We would like to sign Aaron Rodgers. And it's going to be on Aaron, but he loves that spotlight and he is going to run with it. And I have a hard time believing that this thing is going to turn out to be a quick and effortless transition for Aaron. However, if I had to guess, and I'll ask you this next, I think he's coming back. I think my prediction today is that Aaron Rodgers signs another 1-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers, roughly quote unquote 10 M's, which turns into 12 with a $500 incentive if he makes the playoffs. So our $500,000 incentive, which, turns into 13, but 10 M's roughly. And he's the Steelers quarterback in 2026. They wait a year to draft a quarterback, and they draft one in 2027. And then we do this exact same thing over again. And he signs in June 7th. Let's say that's the final day of minicamp. That's when he signs.
Yeah, I'm on the same wavelength as you. I do think it's going to be dragged out again because obviously it happened this past offseason when the Steelers were it felt like his only option. I feel like there could be more this time around.
Yep.
And I do think both sides it's a good partnership. Even if they don't make the playoffs, I do think he has a strong chance of returning. I do think, like you said, he'll probably be their top option. And I don't think it's a bad idea to kind of kick the can down the road in terms of finding your future quarterback, because the 2027 class is going to be stronger than the current one. We did say that about the 2025 class compared to this year's class, when it looked like Arch Manning and Lenore Sellers, all those guys are going to be like elite prospects. But yeah, no, I do think Rodgers will be back. I think he'll give it one more go, and we'll see what happens from there.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Steelers have to be patient with this quarterback situation. You can't just draft somebody because you need a quarterback. You can't, even if it takes years before there's another quarterback class that's worth anything, you cannot jump the gun, because if you do, you are going to find yourself in a Kenny Pickett cycle once again, which is somehow worse than the Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers cycle that we have experienced over the last 2 years. It was worse with Kenny. I'm sorry, but it was worse with Kenny. All right. We were supposed to talk about Travion Diggs, who decided during this podcast, shout out to him for doing it during and not after, that he is signing with the Green Bay Packers over anybody. Did the Steelers just miss out on Diggs?
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't think Diggs was a need. I think their secondary, depending on the health of guys like James Pierre and Brent Knuckles, when and if they return, how, if they're close to 100%, or, if they take on the regular workload, I do think he would have been a nice addition. I know I've seen some people talk about maybe him moving to safety because he's a ball hawk. He hasn't been great at cornerback. He's had a lot of injury issues over the past few years. Of course, the concussion with the TV installation towards ACL in 2023. It would have been an interesting, or maybe even a tough hit, because he has strictly been an outside corner really throughout his career. He's 6'2". I think maybe he could have helped spell like Asante Samuel, who has played pretty well since starting for the Steelers since Pierre went down with his injury. Again, I think it would have been a nice depth piece. I think he probably would have played a decent amount if the Steelers really were interested in him, but he wasn't going to be a factor out of the slot. He probably wasn't going to be a starter. So I don't think like Pittsburgh should be kicking themselves over losing out on him.
No, I look at it as right now, the Steelers had an opportunity to get somebody who's younger than 30, who they could have added to their roster in hopes of developing into something in the future. Now you're kind of banking on. I don't know how I feel about James Pierre. Asante Samuel Jr. I see as a piece that you sign and bring back next season. Joey Porter is obviously your guy. Brandon Echols, it looks like Brandon Echols is good. I like Brandon Echols. Keep him in the slot. I got no issues there. James Pierre is like still my giant question mark. What's 4 good games? I don't know yet. We'll find out, I guess, at some point, but I hope he gets paid. I don't know if it's supposed to be in Pittsburgh. Diggs, in my eyes, would have been the next option. I like that option. Goes to the Packers. I don't know how much I'm into that option. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I do think the Steelers, where do you put corner on the Steelers priority list this offseason?
I don't think it's super, super high because you're going to have Joey Porter Jr. He's going to be in line for an extension. Echols is still going to be around. I don't think like Dante Kent's going to factor into the equation really at all. We'll see what happens with James Pierre and Asante Samuel. I think they could use another corner, but I think there's more pressing needs around the team, probably more so on offense than defense, but still, I don't think it's like have to address the position with a splash move, so to speak.
I have it 4th on my list: quarterback, wide receiver, defensive tackle, corner. Those are my 4. Like, you get those, I feel pretty okay about the situation, because you don't really need a guard. You need a left tackle. I think you fill one of those in free agency and maybe Dylan Cook's the other one, which I saw Roger Jones today. He looks good. And I think you could probably go corner again, but I think another corner next to Joey is the best move you could make. And this corner class is very deep for the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right. That's the Diggs talk. That's the Rodgers talk. Let's do a little bit of what's more likely here on this new year. You got any New Year's plans? I think the people want to know.
Not really. I'm just going to be at home. I have nothing extravagant going on. I'm just going to chill out a little bit.
Nice. I got my mom and my grandma here. They probably could hear me. Hopefully they cannot. Had no idea. That my mom texted me yesterday. She goes, all right, we're going to hit the road at whatever. And I was like, to go where? Where are you going? My house. All right, cool. Sounds good. So we're there. We'll get some dinner. Although it is, as I like to say, piss and snow outside, which is just the worst. All right. A little bit of what's more likely. I got a 4-pack for you as always, my friend. We're going to start off with the easy one. Pittsburgh Steelers, Baltimore Ravens, week 18, do or die. Here it is. All the marbles. This is what Mike Tomlin lives for. Somebody please tell him to live for something a little bit more than a week 18 do or die matchup. But this is his pinnacle right here. What's more likely, my friend? The Pittsburgh Steelers lose to the Baltimore Ravens in week 18 or win their next 2 games this season?
That's tough. I mean, I could go either way. I do think it's probably lose to the Ravens, as much as I hate to say it, just because I really do think this game could go either way. Like, I think it's going to be 20-17, 23-20, super close down to the wire. A lot of running the football going on, obviously, with Derrick Henry for Baltimore.
Yeah.
I think the Steelers, the only team I would give them like a real legit chance to be out of their 4 possible playoff opponents is the Chargers. I just don't see it happening against a team like Houston or Buffalo or Jacksonville.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think a loss to the Ravens is more likely than winning a playoff game and obviously winning in week 18.
That's just it's true, but it's disgusting. It stinks. Yeah. I set you up on that one. What are you going to do about it? It happens. Let's keep it trucking here. We talked about this yesterday. I talked about this on the call-in show today. Go check that one out if you guys haven't seen it. This is all season long. We have asked questions, and we'll ask more tomorrow. I'll go to talk to Arthur Smith tomorrow, and everybody will ask about Pat Freiermuth and Roman Wilson and why they aren't playing and what's going on here and if they're the answers. And then all of a sudden, boom, one of them will have a huge game. This is just what they've done all year long. They've waited for everybody to complain to the absolute max, and then they've said, all right, we'll listen. We'll listen. Finally, we got you. No worries here. What's more likely? Pat Freiermuth has his second giant breakout game this season of 100+ yards, or the Pittsburgh Steelers throw for less than 130 yards against the Ravens. They only threw for 168 against the Browns. 168 against the Browns.
Yeah, I think it's got to be Freiermuth going for 100+. I think he has to be the focal point of the passing offense, especially with obviously DK suspended, Darnell Washington out with his broken arm. Aaron has to look his way more often. Obviously, his first real big game was against the Bengals. He had 111 yards, I think, in that game.
Yep.
He's capable of a huge performance. It's just he hasn't been involved as much as I think really everybody thought he would be. He is a pretty dynamic weapon in the passing game. Again, he hasn't been used super often. So I do think if the Steelers throw for less than 130 yards, I think everybody should probably be fired. Never come back. That would be the Browns defense is very, very good. The Ravens defense has been better recently, but it's not, I mean, Aaron threw for 284 last time against them. I know he had DK, but still, yeah, I would lean towards Freiermuth 100-yard performance being more likely.
I sure hope so. Every time I look at Pat, I can't tell if he watches the podcast and just agrees with everything that I say or hates me a little bit for calling it out and making it public. I have no idea. Love Pat, dude. Good guy. deserves so much more than what he's getting. It's crazy. I have been a Pat defender for a year now. I said sign Pat Freiermuth last May. I said sign him now. There's no reason to sit around and wait. They should have not listened to me, and he would have been much happier on another team right now. Would have been much happier catching touchdowns from Patrick Mahomes or wherever he would have ended up. I got a third one for you. The Pittsburgh Steelers need so much to work in their favor, but they also need some injuries to return. There's a couple of names here. Okay, Darnell goes on IR today. Could come back if they make the Super Bowl. Could come back if they make the Super Bowl. You got Deshaun Elliott. You've got Isaiah Loudermilk. You've got Kyler Bra is out there, whatever his last name is. Sorry, Kyler. You Skylar Thompson. And then you have the Calvin Austin, the Brandon Eccles, the James Pierre, the TJ Watt, the Isaac Siamalu. What's more likely? The Pittsburgh Steelers activate one of their IR guys, or every single person on their injury report plays in week 18. And I'll give you preference here. I can't tell you names. I'm not allowed to do that. But there were some people in the building today who haven't been in the building in some time. There's a couple of them. So what's more likely? The Steelers get a clean bill of health going into week 18, or they activate one of their IR guys?
Yeah, that's super tough. I think it has to be, though, they get a clean bill of health and you see Sayamalu, Watt, Calvin Austin, everybody return. I don't know if you want to throw a guy who's been on IR for a majority of the season into the fire, so to speak, at this point. And not a ton of those guys are huge difference makers outside of Deshaun Elliott. So I do think a lot of maybe that's true. Give him some wildcat snaps or something. Who knows? But yeah, I think it's far more likely that Watt plays, Eccles plays, Austin plays, because they need all hands on deck. They really do. It's not like their chances are zero without most of those guys. But I think if you're not going to push to play now, then when are you going to? So I really do think they're going to have a pretty healthy roster for this weekend's game. All
right. I think so too. There were a lot of names out there. Limited participation, Calvin, Eccles, Pierre, TJ, even Malik Harrison, who was dealing with a bone bruise, Isaac. There was a bunch of them. I think we might get both. I think there's a chance that we might get a little bit of addition here, a little bit of addition there. And who knows, maybe their star safety makes his way back onto the field, which would be absolutely nuts. But we'll see what happens. All right, last one here for you. This is it. This is all the marbles. This is the big game. And I told you that I will ask you your prediction. I won't give mine, but this is how I'm going to do it. What's more likely, my friend? The Pittsburgh Steelers or the Baltimore Ravens win this football game? And what is your score prediction before Sunday?
Yeah, so I kind of hinted at it earlier. This one is, I have a gut feeling that the Steelers are going to win. That's not based on anything logical. I just feel like the season can't end this way. But yeah, logically, I think the Ravens still have the leg up. Now, we talked about it yesterday too, where we both thought that Snoop Huntley playing would be worse news for the Steelers than Lamar playing. It does look like Lamar is going to return after he missed week 17 against the Packers. And the Steelers have kind of had his number throughout his entire career. He's not the same dual threat this year that he has been in the past. So I think it really does come down to Derrick Henry. He had 36 carries last week, which is absurd, 216 yards, 4 touchdowns. I think if he played at the end of the Ravens game against the Patriots in week 16, he was pulled on, I think, their second to last drive for Keaton Mitchell. I do think the Ravens could have won that game. He's just, especially at the end of the year where it's freezing out, everybody's kind of gassed. The last running back in the league you want to face is Derrick Henry. I really do think he can carry them to a win. So I'm going to predict that the Ravens win 20-17, but I think you could flip the outcome and the Steelers win 2017, but my final prediction will be 2017 Ravens win.
20-17.
Going to be low scoring, I think.
Ravens. I mean, it could be 6-0. The Ravens. The Ravens. All right. All right. You called the last one that you were on here for. Let's hope you don't call this one correctly. unless, you're somebody sitting around thinking, I cannot wait for this season to be over. So if you're that guy, not saying you, if others are that guy, Jack's your guy. If not, we'll see what happens. I'll give my prediction on Friday. We'll include this one. All right. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. All right. With that said, guys, that's everything on our agenda. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side of it, we'll start answering your questions. So toss them in the chat. We'll be back in 60 seconds. What's up, AST Nation? I've teamed up with DraftKings. The next great touchdown is coming, and you can bet on it. And the best way to do so is through DraftKings Sportsbook, where new customers bet $5 and get $200 if your bet wins, paid in bonus bets. The playoffs are here, which means the excitement has never been higher. Love the thrill of live betting? DraftKings has got you covered. Bet live on in-progress games right as they happen. Then use your bonus bets to stay in on the action and bet DraftKings same-game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. And don't worry, if sports betting is not yet available in your state, you're fine. You can still join in on all of the fun with DraftKings daily fantasy sports and have the shot to win cash prizes. New customers bet $5 and get $200 if your bet wins, paid in bonus bets. Sign up using my promo code ALLSteelers and get in on the action only at DraftKings Sportsbook. All righty. Shout out to our members. Shout out to our super chatters. Can't thank you guys enough. Before we get going, hit that like and subscribe button. It does wonders for us. We cannot thank you guys enough, especially heading into good old New Year. 2026 is tomorrow, which is
crazy.
This was the fastest year of all time. This is nuts. Yeah. And we were just dealing with the Aaron Rodgers nonsense 3 days ago. And here we are. The man's played for the team. It's a whole football season later. Crazy times. Let's start it off with Dougie Fresh here. Monday, Noah, Steelers suck. Tuesday, Noah, they aren't good. Wednesday, Noah, maybe we're good. We just need wide receiver. Saturday, Steelers may make the Super Bowl and repeat. Look at, everybody loves to call me a flip-flopper. I only see one side, people. One side. I go to the same practice every week, and it's really hard when Aaron Rodgers is throwing dimes to Calvin Austin on Wednesday afternoon against, Deshaun Jameson, and you're going, I don't know, dude. They look really good right now. They look pretty all right. It's just, it messes with your head a little bit. I try to be an they don't call me non-negative Noah for nothing. You know what I mean? They don't call me non-negative Noah for nothing. Shout out to Dougie Fresh. Steelers ain't making the Super Bowl though. Let's be realistic on this one. The Steelers are not headed to San Francisco this season. KGK, 42/43-year-old Rodgers is better than most options. Do you agree with that?
I think he's better. I'd rather have 43-year-old Rodgers than Kirk Cousins or like Mac Jones. Again, I'm going to have to go back to it. Is he better than Kyler? No, but maybe every other realistic veteran option, any bridge option. Like you don't want Jimmy G instead of Rodgers. You don't want Mariota, whoever else you're going to bring in. I do think Rodgers is the far superior option to those types of guys.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think there's a pretty significant list here. It's take your shot on somebody else to come in here and figure this out and see if you reset the cycle or go Aaron Rodgers. Is Aaron Rodgers a better option in year 2, though? Like, do you have more confidence that year 2 Aaron Rodgers versus year 1 Aaron Rodgers is better?
I think so. I think even though he's, so experienced, I think an extra year in any offense is going to help. More experience under Arthur Smith, understands the situation more. I do think it really does depend on what else they do around him, bringing in extra weapons. There's going to be some regression, you would think, from 42 to 43. I don't think he's going to fall off a cliff. No. But I do think he'll play at a similar, if not slightly elevated level if he does return.
Shout out Dougie Fresh, gifting 5 All Steelers Talk memberships. Appreciate you, my guy. If you guys snag them, make sure you're calling into the call-in show. That dropped earlier today. Make sure to go check that out. Smootest Buddhist. Yes, the Ravens-Steelers rivalry. It's a rivalry built on pure hatred, but at the same time, the utmost respect for each other. Let's hope our Steelers come out on top and punch our ticket to the dance. That I don't know if you just took a page out of Mike Tomlin's playbook here. I don't know if this is just reiterated from the press conference, or I don't know if you didn't mean to do this, but you sound just like Mike T, which is so true. So true. I mean, I don't even know how to word this question. In my head, it makes sense. I think when it comes out, it's not going to. When you look at the Steelers-Ravens rivalry and how the Steelers have, genuinely been pretty good, or generally been pretty good in it. But at the same time, this season, they haven't had that clutch factor that they've had in years past. I think they've missed that the last 2 years, where the 2-minute drive isn't there, that like fourth quarter comeback isn't there. It's just not your typical like Kenny Pickett stinks, but he's fantastic with 60 seconds left type of quarterback or offense or whatever. Do you lean on? Go ahead, answer it, because I think you know the question.
I don't. So whatever, I'm open to whatever you have to add.
Do you lean higher on the Steelers generally do well against the Ravens, especially at home, or do you lean higher on this is the AFC North, this is going to be a tough matchup, and the Steelers seem to not have that clutch factor that they've had in years past?
Yeah, the clutch factor, that's a great point. They haven't had a lot of comeback wins. I do feel like it's been more so the opposite, where they'll build a bigger lead early in games and then it gets way too close at the end. You saw that the last game with the Ravens, where they had the ball with a chance to win, I think, on the last drive of the game after they kind of dominated in the first half, especially offensively. Again, the Steelers have had the Ravens number. I think they're 9-2 since the 2020 season against them. So I think anything could happen, especially in a rivalry game. I think you do have to hope the clutch factor doesn't come into play, just because I don't trust Aaron throwing to, as much as I like Pat Freiermuth as the number one option to move down the field. It didn't work against the Browns. I don't think it's going to work against the Ravens, no matter how close they did get to scoring last week. So yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I sadly lean on there is no clutch factor right now. And I think this is going to be close. And I think that's a big, scary moment for the Steelers that we are very much so overlooking in the grand scheme of things. Aunt Mitch, give Pat the damn ball. That's it. It's true. It's true. Do you think Pat Freiermuth's on the Steelers in 2026?
That's tough, because I mean, Jonnu's under contract for 2026.
Yep.
I would still lean yes. Does he have 2 years left on his extension? I think he has 2 years left, or maybe 3. I would lean towards him being back. I still think he is such a valuable weapon.
I think he's a fantastic weapon.
He's a great weapon. Right. So you have to figure out more ways to use him in the future. I don't think they would like shut down any team that were looking to trade for him, but I would lean towards him being back. Yeah.
I feel like the Steelers are going to try to move on. I truly do. I think he's going to want out. The Steelers are going to want out. It's the dumbest choice they can make. Omar in the last, 48 hours has somewhat gone villain on me. And if he moves on from Pat, if the Steelers allow him to move on from Pat, if the head coach wants Pat gone, I think that's my last straw here. That's your only talented offensive weapon right now that you built outside of Jaylen Warren, and you're just going to let him walk? Like, to me, that's the straw. That's the last straw to say, all right, these people don't know what they're doing. And I don't think he's here, but I will be very upset when he's not. Bleach drinking Duff. Anyone who is cheering for us to lose in hopes of us firing Tomlin, you're not a Steelers fan. Please shut up and focus on watching Red Zone and pointing out potential new head coaches you like on sidelines to become potential coaches. Shout out my guy. I don't even know what to say, because truthfully, I think a lot of people are tired of the nonsense with Mike T. I totally understand the disgust, the distaste for him right now, but I also think that this is a really difficult time to move on from your head coach, and they're not going to move on from the head coach. Let's just make that very clear. That's not going to happen. but people would like for it to happen. And I hear it. I agree with it. I wouldn't say I'm a quote unquote Steelers fan. I have to be unbiased. This is my job. But I would not be a fan of what Mike Tomlin has done and what he has failed to do over the last 9 years. And I would be very comfortable if the end result was time to move on from Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, there has to be change of some sort. Even if I think they make the playoffs and they lose in the first round, I think it's way overdue. But we talked about it yesterday too, where this pool of head coaching candidates is weak, like super, super weak. So I don't know. You're not going to bring in anybody, at least in my opinion, that's better suited to run the Steelers than Mike Tomlin. I think he's one of the best coaches still working in the league. I know there's some fatigue there just because there hasn't been any postseason success. And like you said, they're not going to fire Tomlin. I would not be surprised really at all if he moved on, if they do lose this week. But yeah, I think Tomlin returning is a better outcome for the Steelers than getting anybody else to be their next head coach, at least for now.
Yeah, I agree. Ward. Got it. Could you put Gainwell at number 2 across from Calvin Austin the third? That's what they should do. If you're running an offense for the Steelers this week, who are your wide receivers? What's the set you're putting out there? Not realistically, if you were Arthur Smith running the Steelers.
So I'm taking MVS off the field, maybe drop a deep shot or two, hope he catches it. No. Definitely you want Calvin out there. Adam Thielen, I'm not the biggest Thielen fan in the world. He's 34, 35, but he still has, pretty strong hands. He had a good game against the Lions in week 16. I would want him out there. And I'm probably going Roman as my third option at receiver. Maybe you mix Kenneth Gainwell in out of the slot. But yeah, no, I would bench or at least give MVS and Scotty Miller sort of a backseat role and kind of highlight Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin more if Calvin Austin does return.
I feel a lot of the same way. MVS isn't touching the field. Sorry. To be really honest, he's not touching the practice field in my head. If I'm Arthur Smith, you're good, bro. Just stand over there. Don't even think about it. Calvin Austin doesn't come off the field one time. Pat Freiermuth doesn't come off the field one time. I think I'm lining Kenny up in the slot on passing situations, and then on non-passing situations, Adam Thielen could be in the slot. Scotty Miller's playing a little bit. Roman's playing a little bit. And Johnny's going to play tight end. But to me, I honestly would have Calvin and at times Pat out wide and say, let's hope for something, because this is better than what Pat outside is a better option than MVS. He's not a good option outside, but he's a better option than MVS. Those two would never come off the field if I was the Pittsburgh Steelers this weekend. They will come off the field, but they wouldn't. Maddie, would Calvin Austin III be wide receiver 1? Do you trust him in that role? I don't think the Steelers have an option but to trust him. He has to be wide receiver 1, and he has to be the guy that you go to. I don't know if he's capable of it. I don't know if that role suits him. It doesn't suit anybody who's 5'7". It shouldn't, but that's what the Steelers are looking at here. You have to trust him whether you want to or not. Is he going to succeed? I don't really know, to be honest with you.
I think you're totally right. They don't have another choice to really throw out there as the number 1 receiver. It feels like his chemistry with Rodgers hasn't really been there. But it has to be there now. And it's the same thing with Freiermuth. So yeah, he has to be the top option at receiver. Absolutely.
I agree. Keeping it trucking here. Christian, Aaron Rodgers, I'll be back. Could Cam Hayward retire this coming season? Any wide receivers you guys have your eyes on? None that are currently available. People ask that a lot to me. Like, hey, who can you still go out and get? Nobody. I think Cam retires next season. I don't think he retires this season.
Yeah, I think he'll be back in 26 too. In terms of receivers, if we're talking future, maybe you get like a Denzel Boston in the first round. I don't know if they're going to go after like a big name if you even want to call him that, like Alec Pierce in free agency, but there has to be at least one meaningful move in there for an outside receiver, in my opinion, to pair with DK. You can't go another offseason without really truly fully addressing the receiver position, because that's how you get in situations like this.
Do you have a first round wide receiver that you would like the Steelers to select?
I think it's a good class. I just don't think I like Denzel Boston. I don't think they're going to have a chance to get Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson, Mekhi Lemon. I think Boston would probably be the name that I'd be looking at.
Yeah, Boston is a great option. I hope Lemon falls. I think Lemon is fantastic. He's so elusive. I think he fit perfectly on the opposite side of DK. He would add some flair that the Steelers desperately need. To me, wide receiver is the move in the first round. If you're not going to go quarterback, is go get a wide receiver.
Yeah, it has to be. I think it should have been. Yeah, I think I still can't believe they didn't take a receiver in last year's draft. I don't really understand it.
No.
But yeah, no, I would go receiver in first round too.
Agreed. Black Magic, man, where is Jacob? Jacob will be back tomorrow, so we'll be good. Don't even worry about it. Jack's here though, and honestly, like I said, I went last night. That's it. I don't know how we're gonna do it, but me and Jack have to do a podcast. We have to make it happen. Shout out to good old Jacob. T's and P's to him. He'll be back tomorrow. Nate Moore, what are you guys' New Year's plans? I hope everybody's having a good time. Do you do anything special on New Year's Day? Besides,
I don't.
Do you eat pork? Do you eat the pork? You got to eat pork for good luck or something. I don't think I ate pork last year.
I didn't even know about that, to be honest. But no, I'm just gonna sit around, lounge, chill. I have no crazy plans whatsoever.
My go-to is to clear up the hangover that happens on New Year's Day. You go to Mickey D's in the morning. You get your bacon, egg, and cheese McGriddle. There's your pork and the best food available on the planet on a hangover Monday with a Diet Coke, and you're good to go. 2 birds, 1 stone. You're feeling good.
I like that.
Yeah. For those of you who just learned a trick, you're welcome. Double R, thoughts on going after one of Tampa Bay's wide receivers? McMillan would be my name. Okay. This year put a damper in it because he was injured for most of the season. You didn't really get to see what he could do. I thought he was going to have a breakout year. Shout out to who was it that hurt him? Was it Deshaun Jameson? I think it was Deshaun Jameson who laid him out, and that was his season, or at least a majority of his season. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, excuse me. I'm over those guys. They're old. They're at the end of their career. I'd go McMillan. He'd probably be the only one I'd feel comfortable with.
Yeah, I agree.
Besides a Buka, but you're not going to get him.
Right. Maybe Tez Johnson, although I think the Bucs probably like Tez Johnson. He's a rookie. He's been productive, especially when Godwin and Evans were hurt. But yeah, it would have to be one of the younger guys, not one of the older of that duo with Godwin and Evans.
Shout out to Double R. I coached at McMillan's High School. Sending a little bit of a good word here. That's all we're asking for. Carl Mean Cup of Joe, green bean salad, Spackler. What's more likely, Aaron Rodgers comes back or Pat Fryermuth asks out? This is a fantastic what's more likely, my friend. Oh, wow. I got an answer. I think what's more likely is Pat is gone in 2026.
Really? I think it's more likely that Rodgers returns. Rodgers
returns, right?
Yeah, that Rodgers returns.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I guess I think both is going to happen. I read this one wrong. Yeah. No, it is more likely Rodgers returns. It is more likely. You're right there. It is more likely Rodgers returns. But I think both of these things could happen. And I think the likelihood of both of them happening are actually pretty strong. I could see Pat saying, hey, guys, you got to get rid of me if you're not going to use me. And Aaron, where else is he going to go? Nowhere.
Yeah, I don't know.
No. Wow, that's a good one. Pittsburgh Hornets, what's more likely? Lamar Jackson leaves after this game or Cam Hayward leaves after this game? Oh, this is another good one here.
Lamar Jackson leaving the Ravens, huh?
Contract dispute in the offseason, part 2.
Yeah.
Still no. They're saying Minnesota. They're saying Miami.
Yeah, I mean, Miami would be interesting just because he's from down there. I don't think Cam is going to retire. I really don't. So I guess I would say Lamar is more likely, but I would put the likelihood of either happening pretty low. I think Lamar is going to remain a Raven.
I agree. I think the higher probability, although it's very small, is Cam. I could see Cam saying, "This is the end. This was fun. It's time to go." And that's more of the Steelers saying, "Get out, brother. This was fun. It's time to move on." Which would be their like excuse of like, "Hey, well, we made a big change. You know, we fired our defensive coordinator and offensive coordinator, and then we forced Cam into retirement. That's it. That's enough. We should go win a Super Bowl now." And they won't, but I could see it happening for sure. Pittsburgh Hornets has another one for us. What's more likely, the Ravens putting up 30 plus points or the Steelers having 9 plus catches in the middle of the field? Ravens 30 points. I mean, not even close. Not even close.
The good old middle of the field debate. Yeah, no, I agree. The Ravens scoring 30 plus is definitely more likely.
The good old middle of the field debate, which is so true and sad for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I agree. Dougie Fresh. Noah has some inside scoop. Yesterday, I believe he said Aaron Rodgers was gone. I may or may not have had some conversations today. May or may not, but we'll leave that as is. We'll leave that as is. Electric Divergent. Kirk Cousins looked good the other night. If we had him over or on a Russell Wilson type deal, I would throw up. That's what would happen. It would be awful. It would be, don't get me wrong. From a personal standpoint, I view all of these things differently. When Aaron Rodgers signed, people were pissed. Oh, Aaron Rodgers here. I hate that guy. He's such a scumbag. But I look at it like I get to experience who Aaron Rodgers is. You know what I mean? That's great. Kirk Cousins is a completely different realm of this. And I would love to experience that. I would love to know what it's like for a quarterback who makes so much money to show up in Kohl's clothing every day and go home to his wife who's, just laying out the Kohl's coupons. I would love to know what that's like. Okay. But as a fan, if I was a fan of the Steelers, I'd throw up. I would throw up all over my house if I saw that.
Yeah, Kurt, he's just so uninspiring as an option. I said this yesterday too, though. I think he gets almost too much flack. I think he's had a better career than people give him credit for. Has he been overpaid? Yeah. Him getting 4 years and 180 million coming off of a torn Achilles, torn ACL was wild. But he hasn't been like unplayable or unusable since Michael Penix went down for them. He's been fine, but he's a worse option than Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be 38, 37. He can't move. I don't really know what you would expect from him if he were to be a Steeler. And I don't think it's going to happen either.
I don't think it's going to happen either. I don't know. You can't expect anything. You can't expect it. But if Aaron retires, add him to the list. We got two more to add to the list here. Eddie, what about Anthony Richardson?
I like Anthony Richardson a lot. His potential.
You are quarterback hot takes central, my friend. All of them.
I would say I like his potential more than. I think he's probably the highest upside option just in general. I don't trust that he's going to be able to put it all together or stay healthy. Like he's a better version of like a Joe Milton, these like super athletes who have crazy arms. They throw the ball 150 yards. It looks like they're throwing it 10. He's mobile. He was picked number 4 overall for a reason. I don't think it would be expensive to get him. I guess in a way it would be similar to what they did when they got Justin Fields heading into the last year of his rookie deal. I think Fields obviously was more experienced, more of a known commodity. I would definitely be intrigued, though, if Anthony Richardson were a Steeler. Like, I think there's a world where he really hits and becomes a good starter at some point.
I think there's a world for sure. I think there's for sure a world. I don't think that world happens in Pittsburgh. I don't. I would love for it to happen. I like Anthony Richardson. I think people gave up on him way too early. Anthony Richardson, if they somehow had him this year, or if you re-sign Rodgers and then develop Richardson to compete with Will Howard and whoever you draft, sure, sounds good. But you're not signing Anthony Richardson to be a backup. That just doesn't make any sense. What about Joe Milton?
Milton, it's the same discussion. I think there's more risk of him not hitting than Richardson, just because I don't think he's not as much of, neither player is a finished product, but I think Richardson has shown more. To me, Milton is like a volatile, high upside backup who's probably never going to be a starter in the NFL. But he's interesting. He's fun to watch.
He's fun to watch for sure. I think he'd be a blast to watch in Pittsburgh. I agree with you. I don't think he ever makes it as a starter. He'd be fun though. He'd be fun for sure. And then Jonathan, no, what do you think about trying to make a move for Joe Burrow? I was told from a Bengals source, like an in the building source. I got a phone call. You guys, my wife, she was standing next to me. I laughed so hard on the phone with this guy because he just called me and said, let me give you a quote. And I said, all right, sounds good. And the quote was so suspenseful. He went line for line to make sure that I got every single word right. And he said, I think I still have it. Let me grab it here because I definitely have it. We have no intentions of trading Joe Burrow whatsoever. But if that day ever came, I'm reading it as he read it to me, he would not be a Pittsburgh Steeler. And I just died. I said, all right, thanks. He said, please make sure that gets out. I said, I will do my best. Yeah, hilarious. He would never end up in Pittsburgh. Would the Steelers try? Yeah, they should 100%. They're crazy not to make a phone call. Yeah. That phone call would go nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. Brain Dead Billy, how do you get the memberships? If you hit the link to become it says join AST Nation or something like that in the description below this video. It'll take you right to the membership page. Just hit join. You'll be good to go there. Shout out my guy. Appreciate you. Carl, Mean Cup of Joe, Green Bean Salad, Spackler, Noah, and Jack. You have to fill the coaching staff with one NFL family group duo. Who do you pick? Manning Ryans, Harbaugh Kelsey's, or Shanahan Watts? Oh, the coaching staff. Not even the coaching staffs is a good one here. Because the Harbaugh's got it and the Kelsey's, but that might be all offense. I think the Shanahan upside here is just worth every bit of it. You know, like I just don't think I trust JJ to be a coach. I trust TJ to be a coach. Sure. I think the upside of the Shanahan coaching tree is just ridiculous. And it just Mike and Kyle out there.
Yeah.
You don't need anybody else.
No, I'm on the same page. The Shanahans they've pretty much revolutionized the NFL. Kyle in particular, recently. So I think, I would go Shanahans all day.
All day. All right. Keeping it trucking here, ND Joe. How about Aaron Rodgers leaves after the season and Flacco gets hired? Muth stays and gets utilized. I hope you mean Flacco gets hired as a coach and not a quarterback. But no. You want to hire him as a quarterback's coach? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that would be great.
But as a quarterback, he's very low on my list. He was fun. Don't get me wrong. Please don't do that to us. Please don't do that to us. Please, just never. OS. What's more likely, Steelers rebuild the roster or Shedeur Sanders is a long-term starter for the Browns? Also a very good one here. Very good.
That is good. I would say it's probably more likely that the Steelers rebuild their roster. I like Shedeur. I like what I've seen. I don't think he's a long-term answer. I don't know if I see the true upside. I think he has a pretty high floor. I really do. I think he'll be in the league for a while. I just don't see him as a franchise quarterback. I think the Browns might take Dante Moore, if they have a top 3 pick or trade up, and essentially move on from Shedeur as soon as this offseason. So
I agree. I think the Steelers at some point would just be like, yeah, we have to do it. Shedeur being a long term, he looked terrible against the Steelers. It's terrible. So sorry, Eddie. If we make it all the way, can you show DK and Rodgers my profile pic and make them recreate it? It is hilarious if you actually look at it, and I will do my best. I will do my best. Let's finish it off with OS here. TJ Watt for Jared Verse, a first and a second. Thoughts. The Steelers, my thoughts originally, and we'll have to switch this up a little bit, is you're going to have to give up a first and a second and TJ for Jared Verse. That's going to have to happen. It's not the other way around. Jared Verse is worth way more than TJ is right now. TJ Watt for Jared Verse, and you give up a second round pick. Would you do it?
I would do it. Yeah, I think Jared Verse, obviously he's a great young pass rusher. He was Defensive Rookie of the Year last year. I still trust TJ. I still think he's a great player. But it's worth the second round capital if the Rams were to ever like come to you with that proposal or be open to it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if the Rams called, sure. Sounds good. I trust TJ as well. I think TJ's I'm not ready to give up on him. I think I give him a very long leash, a long runway to kind of fix this because he's earned that runway. He's earned that leash. I'm willing to give it to him. We'll see what happens next season or in the playoffs if they get there, but we'll see. All right, guys. With that said, we're heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to the final episode of All Steelers Talk of 2025. I hope everybody has a fantastic and a safe new year, but don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow to keep it trucking as we begin 2026, a new journey, and hopefully the beginning of a playoff run for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Before we head out of here, hit that like and subscribe button. Find us always at youtube.com/allsteelerstalk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts and find all of mine and Jack's work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. Until then, once again, Happy New Year to everybody, and we will be back tomorrow. Enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.